Let's continue building our houses app with a room database. Now, the one thing I did while you weren't watching was to create this constraint layout. This is a list view that will eventually show all of the houses we have on offer. And here's a little form that you should be able to use to add houses to the database. So let's try to get this to work. In the main activity, I did already add the find view by IDs, but this is the easy part. Now for the harder part. We want to populate the list on the screen, so the list view, instead of just doing these log messages. The thing is, there's nothing really new or special here we need to do. We can just set an adapter on the list view, set adapter, and we'll just use a standard array adapter, which means we won't get a fancy user interface. It will just be lines of text, but that's alright for us for now. So it will be having house objects, and we provide it with the context, and next we need to provide it with a layout that is going to inflate, and I'll just use a standard one, a simple list item. Oh, that's the one. And as the last argument, we'll pass it the list of houses. And that should be all there is to it to get this list actually on the screen. Let's see if that works. Yes, there it is. As you can see, there are now 3 houses. The houses aren't displayed all that nicely, so let's invest a little bit of time into that to actually show the properties. We'll override the toString method there, and we'll just concatenate all of our fields together. So there's a space and then the house number, and then within parentheses we'll display the the size in square meters, and we'll display the asking price in euros. Let's see, there it is, plus asking price, and we'll close the parentheses. There. Let's see if that works. Yeah, that's awesome. Only as you can see, all of the data is now kind of empty, and the street name is always Van Galenstraat. So that's not really interesting. So we want to hook up this form to the database. So we'll go to the main activity, and I'll strip out the add house that we're doing every time the main activity is created, and instead we want to be doing this in an event handler. So let's say, well, there already is a button, the add button, and we can define a set on click listener for that. Click listener there, and whenever that is clicked, we do want to add a house, and well, creating the house is not all that different than it was before, except that we'll be setting the fields based on what's in the form. So there's a street name view get text to string. It's always a little bit cumbersome. There. And here we need to convert it. And there's more numeric fields, so we can just copy paste that. There's the asking price and the size. We need to change it here as well. Asking price view and the size view. That should be that. If we want a really neat app, we would of course set the text to empty when we add it, when we press the add button, but we'll just leave it for now. It's easier. And this adds the house. Well, let's see what this does. And I'm afraid you're going to be a little bit disappointed. There, let's add some numbers here. And I'll press the add button. And as you can see, absolutely nothing happens. Well, well, as I promised, you might be disappointed. The thing is, when I close the app and then I start it again, you can see here that the database entry actually has been added. It's just that we're not updating our view. Now, of course, what we could do is we could ask the adapter to do the update. So within our on click, well, we could just set a new adapter. That would be one way of doing it. So this would probably fix it. We need to change this here, but apart from that, this would work. Only this is not really how you're supposed to be using Android Room. You're supposed to be using Room in such a way that changes to the database will automatically be reflected in the user interface. And we'll use an observer pattern for that. So an observer pattern means there is something that is observable. In this case, it's the data in the database. It's our model objects. They are observable and they are being observed by the user interface. And Android architectural components offer something that's really suited for that, called LiveData. And it's integrated within the Room ORM. So what we need to do is go to the DAO and modify this method a little bit. We're going to instruct Room that getAllHouses is not just going to return a list of houses. No, it's actually going to return LiveData containing a list of houses. What this means, LiveData means that we want to have updates pushed. Whenever something changes, we want to know about it. Okay, so this now breaks our main activity because, well, DAO getAllHouses now doesn't return a list of houses as we're expecting here. Instead, it returns a LiveData object. So what do we do with that LiveData object? Well, we can subscribe to it. We can observe it using such a function. First we need to pass it the lifecycle owner. So that's really just an activity or fragment. This tells the observer that we only want to observe for the duration of this activity. So whenever this activity is closed, it can stop sending us events from the database. Next, there is an observer. It's this one, the Android X lifecycle observer. Do we have it? Oh, I'm sorry. We need to create a new Android X lifecycle observer. Yes, there it is. And within this method will be called every time the list of houses may possibly have been changed in the database. And that's exactly what we want. So we just need to change. Need to move this set adapter to within the onChanged function, the onChanged method, and now it will work for every time there is a change. It's complaining a bit because the this is now referring to the observer, so we need to make it clear that we want the main activity this. And apart from that, it's quite happy. So let's see if we actually manage to fix it with this. Okay. I think this one is going to be a bit more expensive. There. So it should be bigger as well. There. Add. And there you go. We have an updated list view. There's one thing I mentioned earlier that we're really not supposed to do. And that's the allow main thread queries. So I'm going to be removing it here. And part of the problem has already been fixed by means of the LiveData. So the getAllHouses method here, it doesn't block the main UI thread anymore. Why? Because what this method returns isn't actually the list of houses. No, it's a LiveData of the list of houses. And at first, this LiveData will not actually have any data in it. Instead, in the background, it will start a thread that will run the database query, and once the first response is available, only then will the unchanged method be called for the first time. So this is actually safe code. It won't block your user interface, which means that the room database won't be complaining about this. However, it will still be complaining about this. Why? Well, because the onClick listener is being called within the main thread, and it doesn't want us to block the main thread. I'll demonstrate that it actually is a problem here. I'll add something there. Add, and it crashes. Why did it crash? Right, because I'm not doing my user interface handling properly. That's another problem. So the problem here was that there were no numbers in these fields. And of course, we would need actual error handling here. Yes, so this is the error we were expecting. Cannot access the database on the main thread since it may potentially lock the UI for a long period of time. Right, so what we need to do here is make sure that this query actually runs within a different thread. And there are many ways to do that in Android, but one way is to just create a new thread object, and you need to pass the thread object a runnable. A runnable has a run method, and within this run method, we can actually do the thing that that may take a long time. So this which causes this to actually happen at a later date. So the onClick function will just resume after this. It will return. The main thread will be available to update the user interface, whilst in the background at some point the house will be added to the database, which in turn will cause the observable to fire, and eventually the list will update as well. There's one thing you really don't want to forget. Just creating a thread isn't enough. You actually need to start it. Otherwise, nothing happens. Okay, let's see if we actually fixed it here. Just some numbers. I'm pressing add, and yes, it works. That's great.